Golabila Sicoletto. Episode number 24. Are you alright, Tom?
Yeah, it can all be
Funny you should say that, because today we're embarking on a Dada.
Are we back in English now?
Yeah, well, Dada, yes. You know Dada?
I know of such a thing.
Yeah. It's what babies say, yes, it is what babies say, meaning daddy.
Oh, Dada.
Yeah, Dada,
yeah, of course.
Yeah. I was just watching the news the other day. Well, actually, it was on the news today, and it said that the Minister for Transport had just stopped or cancelled a contract with a shipping company that didn't have any ships.
Oh, yeah, I saw that as well.
For those who don't know, there was a shipping company that apparently was going to do lots of shipping for Britain in March.
And let's be clear, it's post-Brexit.
Yeah, post-Brexit. Government actually gave them a 14 million contract, even though they didn't have any ships, which is utterly crazy. I thinking it's just ridiculous. It's almost beyond parody. If I book a holiday on a plane, I like to know that they've got a plane.
You want in advance of your flight?
I generally like to know that they've got a plane.
Yeah.
It's normally better to get that. You normally have a more chance of getting on a flight if they have a plane.
Yes,
so,
particularly if you paid 14 million for your plane ticket.
So it made me think about a world that has gone absolutely crazy, and I'm sure there's a lot more in the news that makes you listening think that the world's gone particularly bonkers. If you go back 100 years, just over 100 years to 1916, I think the world was equally as mad, insane in a different way. It was in the grips of the First World War, and it was a time, obviously, of craziness when people weren't talking to each other. It was a breakdown of all kind of sense and reason. Out of this sprung an artistic movement called Dada.
Wow, so after all the madness of the First World War, yeah, so,
I mean, Dada, it's a crazy, violent, mocking movement, and it's really hard to pin down.
So this was the backdrop to the first Dada works?
Yes. I mean, it's anti-establishment and a direct response to a society that's gone mad. So that's, you can imagine. It was anti-society and even anti-itself. And its proponents would regularly state that even Dada is anti-Dada. It was also a movement that wasn't obsessed with the aesthetic, and it was the first properly international art movement, and it took place in Germany, Switzerland, France and the US.
How many Dadaists does it take to change a light bulb? Who is Dada?
It's funny you asked that, because what a coincidence, because Dada is a movement that was started in Zurich. Now, Zurich is in Switzerland, and at the time, Switzerland was neutral.
Oh, First World War backdrop.
Yeah, First World backdrop. So, there was quite a lot of people that were refugees from different parts of Europe. Artists and creatives would be there. And in early February 1916, Hugo Ball, a poet and philosopher, founded the Cabaret Voltaire in a bar in Zurich. Now, you can imagine it's kind of like all these nice little cobbly streets and all these little houses, and there's a bar sort of like in the basement, I think it was, and you can imagine. And what he set up was, I think, is the equivalent of like a kind of like an open mic for anyone, for poets and artists and creatives. And he decided to call it the Cabaret Voltaire. So Voltaire was a French philosopher and writer.
Oh, okay.
And I assume that's where the name's taken from.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so we've got this kind of like, you can imagine, he's invited anyone who's arty to come along. He put out an advert for it. And gradually, artists would turn up and perform their work. So it started off as just a nightclub, a sort of nightclub with for performance and poetry and arty things, and in the end it became a thing in itself, a movement. So it started in February, and towards the end of February they decided it needed a name, this movement. This open mic night, I suppose, had become so different and so individual that it needed a name. It was an artistic movement.
And they couldn't really call it cabaret Voltaireism.
No. So they called it Dada. Apparently it was chosen at random. This is one of the stories. There's many stories why it was chosen. And one idea was that Hugo Boll and the writer Richard Hasselbeck at random chose the word from a dictionary. So what they did was they got a letter opener and they just stuck it into the page of a paper.
Yeah.
And then opened it and it landed on the word Dada,
Thanks for the visual demonstration, by the way.
Yeah, I just showed you that. If you heard any noise, I was demonstrating with the end of my glasses how to pick a...
So it could have been called anything. It could have been called anything else from the dictionary at the time.
Yeah, it would have been a bit difficult if it had been...
But I guess if they're Swiss guys or German or Germanic or French guys, they're going to be choosing Dada in a different language.
Well, yeah, this was French, and the Dada apparently is a colloquial for hobby horse. But,
okay. So it's like it means something different then in French to how we understand it, maybe.
Dada also means that it's like the first word that a daddy says, you know. That a daddy says, that a baby says.
No, that a daddy says when he's born. To the first word he says to his dad.
Yeah. so it's a baby word that were also involved in the Dada movement.
Surely, if it was the baby thing, though, wouldn't it be more like papa?
Well,
if it's
papa.
French.
Yeah, it could be papa.
Nicole, papa.
Yeah. It also means yes in Romanian, and there were a couple of Romanian artists that were involved in the movement.
Yeah.
But Dada is about that. There's no kind of rules.
Each to their own, I guess.
Yeah, and it's a lot of egos, a lot of different artists with different ideas, but very, very anti-establishment. And it's all about the absurd.
Yeah.
And it's all about, the madness of the world. So the work they did, Dada, ridiculous. It's almost like a ridiculous word because the world is so ridiculous, and it's almost like this word almost encapsulates it as well.
Absolutely.
The world gone Dada.
Yeah, but the thing is, we talk about Dada like madness, but Dada is Gaga.
Yeah, Lady Gaga is influenced
yeah.
by Dada, I would say. She's a performance artist and she would know about Dada.
Yeah, well, she does dress up in food outfits and some quite strange get-up.
Yeah, and these are the kind of things that they would do at the Cabaret Voltaire. I've got some of these kind of things that took place on this stage. Now, you've got to imagine the Cabaret Voltaire. It's the kind of like a nightclub, a little bar, and sort of like an arts sort of culture community. And you've got a backdrop painted by the artist Jean Arp, or Hans Arp, as he's sometimes known. And he did a painting on the background of the wall of the stage, which looks like cucumbers.
He's called Hans Arp or John Arp.
Sometimes known as Hans Arp, as Jean Arp, or known as Hans Arp.
He's got two names.
Yeah, he's got two names.
So why is there a disagreement over his name? Sorry to change the subject.
Well, no, I don't know.
Is this a Dada thing?
He's got double nom.
Double nom.
Oh my God, that's not even any. But that's a spirit of Dada. Make it up. So, what kind of acts took place? Now, I think we could recreate the kind of strangeness. So you imagine you've got this backdrop drawn by Hans Arp or John Arp. Looks like several large cucumbers. And you've got like strange jazz being played sometimes. Sometimes you just have people, just jazz music being played. And then sometimes you'd have like poetry. For instance, the writer Raoul Hausmann, he stood on stage and decided to read a poem out. And it was just verbs and phonetic sounds like b b b b b k k k b b b b b m m m m m m m.
You know who this reminds me of?
Who?
Martin Creed.
Yes.
We covered a couple of weeks ago.
Absolutely. I think maybe we could recreate the jazz feel. I can get on the piano and just play in the background while you do some birds.
All right, okay.
Yeah, we don't. It's mic's all right, isn't it? I mean, we can still pick it up, won't it?
Yeah.
So I'll play a little bit of jazz. Can I use your grand piano? 1, 2, 3, 4.
It was pa sa pa sa. Shoulder butters, cutters, status, ba. Hey, we get some more beer in here.
Right. So that probably gives you a flavour. Yes, people, you're probably listening and think that sounded ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know what I was singing.
But imagine, is it any more ridiculous than what was going on with the war? And
but you've got to remember, though, this is like an underground bar of artists, and they're all drinking.
Yeah.
So, that might be quite a sober reflection of the events. Can we have some more beer, please?
There's another artist here called Marcel Janko. Now he's Romanian, and he made some primitive looking scary masks and costumes that were influenced by Romanian folk art. Hugo Ball described them as the horror of our time. The paralysing background of events is made visible. And then what artists, for instance, like Sophie Tauber, who's a painter, would wear the costumes and would be transformed, and they would be performing crazy improvised dances. Dada was quite scary, in the same way I said about punk. Punk's like, it's got that kind of, that kind of like aggressiveness and scary, and it was absurd as well. So you can imagine going to a club.
It doesn't sound as scary as Life in the Trenches.
No, but I've seen someone do a really crazy dance in a primitive looking cardboard mask is not as scary as being on the front line in the song.
It
was crazy.
Well, I get the idea.
Yeah, and again, Dada, as we've shown, was about language. All communications are broken down. Words no longer have any sense. They're meaningless. Diplomacy has failed. Everyone's at war, and society no longer communicates. And it's
so it would like President Trump then? He'd be President Dada. Is that?
Yeah, he'd be the Uber Dada. Yeah,
Uber Dada.
But this is the thing. This is what some Dadaists were trying to do: expose what was fake news and things like that. Expose it and say, don't believe what you're told. Look at how
our crazy dance.
So another performance was by Richard Holzenbeck, the writer, would perform his pieces while aggressively banging a drum and brandishing a riding whip or a cane. And he was, apparently he was almost trying to drum literature into the ground.
Whoa.
Yeah. Have you ever tried to drum literature into the ground?
No, but we could do it as a Dada experiment.
Yeah. Have you got any sticks and books?
I've got plenty of books in the house.
Yeah. So you can imagine you've got this guy on stage. He's drumming his whip. He's whipping his drum. And then he's joined on stage by Marcel Janko and Tristan Tzara. Tristan Tzara considered himself one of the leaders of. He had quite a big ego, I assume. To what I think, and he kind of took the spirit of Dada and claimed it to be his own.
That he was like spokesperson.
Yeah. Although Hugo Ball started the open mic night, he kind of led it to become the Dada kind of movement that it became. And he was a poet and a writer and a performance artist. So you can imagine you've got him, Marcel Janko on stage, and what they're going to do? They all read out jokes and make recitals, all speaking different languages. So one of them speaks German, one of them speaks English, and one of them speaks French. And it's a bit like the biblical Tower of Babel, I think.
I'm not sure of the biblical reference of Babel. You might have to explain that to me.
Well, where they all speak different languages. Where the idea that they all were made to speak different languages. And again, it's about this pointlessness of words, that words are there to communicate, to stop you from fighting, and it's the failure. This is how I see it, the failure of society.
Dadaism.
The most famous piece of Dada that was performed at the Cabaret Voltaire was the one that was a poem that was read by Hugo Ball. It was something he wrote, and it was a verse that didn't have any words, almost like sound poems. So it sounded like language, but it wasn't actually a language at all. And what he did was he wore a costume of cardboard, and I think he looks a bit like a cross between a priest and the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz. Is that how you look at him?
Yeah, I thought it looked a bit like Ken Dodd. But
those of you who don't know Ken Dodd, he had a big tickling stick, and we'll put a picture on the website.
He's quite an eccentric comedian.
But the thing is, his Dada could be funny as well. So you've got this guy, he's got trousers that look like they're made of cardboard tubes.
He looks a bit like he's got insect hands.
Cardboard insect hands, and his whole body is hidden inside a cardboard tube, and then he's got a big cardboard coat.
Kind of like a tomato puree paste pot, he looks.
Yeah, and then he's got a big
squirty
hat.
Cream, actually, squirty cream, isn't it?
Yeah, and he's got a big hat. Now, I think he's wearing this because he's distancing himself from the audience. He's also making himself even more strange, even more inaccessible. It's dressed like this. He reads out his nonsensical poem. Tom, I've actually got a copy of the poem here, and it's called Karawani, I think. That's how you pronounce it.
Do you want me to have a go at it?
Yeah, have a go at some of it.
Okay, so I haven't looked at it before, so you might have to...
With feeling, and so if you just read out like a little bit of it, so the people get an idea of it, and we'll put a link.
Jolifanto bambla o fale bambla, grosiga mumfa habla horem, egiga goramen, higo bloiko rashula huju.
Have some more beer in here, please.
Holaka holala. And logo bang, blago bang, bosso fataka.
It does sound like guns. I'm imagining guns, because we were talking about backdrop, the trenches. It does sound like gunfire, all these
Yes. Now that's really interesting. Zurich Dada was very aggressive but very absurd.
Right, yeah.
And about the breaking down of language and what language means.
Or shall I go finish? I'm halfway through.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Shampa willa wassa o lobo. Willaboo, subudu, ulu, subudu, tampa ba oomph, kasagoma ba oomph.
Sorry, I went a bit of Hitler at the end there.
Steady on. Don't you get your Hitler tendencies. Not other tendencies are available, and we prefer ones that relate to peace.
Goo goo ga da ba 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 do ba, dipper booty ba da boo boo.
We talked about the other artist, Jean Arp, and he was born in 1886 and he died in 1966. 7th of June. Was he alive for the World Cup? When did England win the World Cup?
Do you want me to look it up?
Yeah.
They won it in 66, but it would have been in July, surely.
Yeah. The only thing that England, the only footballing thing that England
German,
ever
was
won.
He?
No, he was born in Strasbourg.
Oh, right.
French mother and German father.
Yeah, so he wouldn't have wanted England to win the World Cup.
No.
Well, he might have done. He might have hated.
Well, he just hated war.
Hated war, yeah.
Yeah, he was anti everything. So.
Look, the ball did cross the line. Just get on with the game.
That's a very England soccer fan comment. So he started making collages, but collages that were dictated by chance, not by his own aesthetic pleasure.
Oh, okay. Because there is a certain amount of choice in chants, isn't it? Because where are you choosing his chants from?
He would tear up a work into bits and not using scissors, so he'd actually use his hands. He sort of surrendered even that bit to chance.
Oh, that's totally Dada.
Yeah, and then he drops them onto a large sheet of paper and pasted them, I think, more or less where they fell.
Yeah.
Because if you look at them, chances create some pretty nicely balanced works.
Yeah, they do look like they've been organised neatly.
Yeah. So I'm looking at one and it's called Collage with Squares Arranged According to the Laws of Chance. It's a blue and white collage on a grey background consisting of ripped squares, I would say.
But I guess maybe, the laws of chance, I guess that is the theory behind it. And he might have done it intentionally like this, but it's about chance, isn't it? Rather than necessarily him use. It doesn't look like he uses chance at all, does it? Because they're quite balanced, but it's about chance.
But looking at one of his later ones, the 1933 one, there's one where it's just, it's completely ripped bits of paper that looks like they have been dropped.
See,
and they're all black.
They're spread out though. Surely, chance you'd have a bit more, like all over. They're still quite evenly across the canvas.
Are you debating his sense of chance?
Well, I just think this was before goal line technology. So how can we know?
How can we prove his randomness?
Let's do an experiment. Let's tear up a bit of paper and drop it. And
we are now going to do chance.
See if we can recreate his piece.
So, this is the John Hart picture. Right, now, I'm now going to rip it up.
Yeah, I mean, this is... We've got to imagine we're in Strasbourg.
Right, so, now, this is them falling down on chance.
Right, let's compare it to the actual image. That is the chance that we found.
Right, so this is the kind of image that you would have, or the way they would fall, right? Or this is the top of the blue squares that I haven't ripped. So looking at it, do you think it really is? Chance looks a bit more, a bit less spaced out, a bit less aesthetically pleasing, it seems.
Yeah, it seems as chancy to me as the ABBA song, Take a Chance on Me.
And that was through years of practice and disciplined rehearsal that song came about, wasn't it? In fact, I would believe that they left very little to chance, and it was all about discipline and work ethic. So, why was he doing that, though? That's the thing. The idea is that people were supposed to be being rational, the bourgeois and the establishment, and
they were tearing up bits of paper and
they were tearing up the world, tearing up the earth, tearing up Europe, I would say. And the idea is that you think, well, you know, if reasoned communication doesn't work, then why not leave it to chance?
Yes,
and that's the idea.
So Dadaism as a thing is more like it's about politics and the feelings behind it. It's almost like what the artists actually do.
Society.
It's like they can do anything as long as they feel that anger.
Yeah, it's not about aesthetic, it's about the idea.
Yeah, it makes it Dada.
But Dada's anti everything. So it wasn't about the artist, it wasn't about making works for people, for the bourgeois and the establishment to put on their wall. It was about being anti everything. And of course the ironic thing is, if you're anti everything, Dada is anti Dada even, because Dada is seeking to oppose and upset the society that gave birth to it.
Dada tree poetism.
Dada also called out fake news well before fake news invented, and Tristan Tzara, the writer we talked about, he once actually even created some fake news himself. And what he did was...
So we're talking about like 100 years ago?
Yeah, fake news. And what he did was he sent a story about a fake duel between him and John Arp, which 4 shots were fired and John Arp was slightly injured. And it actually ended up getting in a newspaper, and it was completely made up, fake news. He further questioned the subject by issuing instructions on how to make a Dadaist poem, taking the subject of the news and saying, look, it's just words, and these words can be arranged in any way and have any meaning you want. Just as the people who sell you the news, who write the news, take a load of words and arrange them in a way so that they mean something.
Okay, so what are the instructions? I want to know how to make a Dadaist poem.
Right, okay, so take a newspaper. We're actually, in this case, I've got a copy of Glamour magazine, which is a fashion and beauty magazine.
Yeah.
So if you find an article in there, so it says it, I mean, here's the thing, it says take a newspaper.
Okay, so we've got say hello to the Tinder view.
No, something a bit more. You got your scissors.
Didn't you pick one out earlier?
Yeah.
What was it?
Well, I don't want to do what men think about their penis. That's ridiculous.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That is good.
Okay. So this is an article about men, and they're being asked about their penis, and this one is about a guy who calls his. He says, "I call mine Rufus," and he's age 46.
Now, I just got to tell our listeners, next to this article called "I Call Mine Rufus" is a picture of a rocket.
Because it would hit the Rufus, wouldn't it? Yeah. Right. And so Right, the instructions are, choose an article as long as you are planning to make your poem.
Right, okay, hang on, I've got to cut out this in different bits.
Yeah, so you're cutting that. Now, cut out the article, then cut out each of the words that make up this article and put them in a bag.
This is like the school of David Bowie songwriting, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. So, take this bag, which is, in this case, we've got a supermarket bag, but it can be any bag of any size. Right, put them in there. Yeah. Tristan Sarah says, then take the scraps out one after the other in the order they left the bag. So first take one out, put it down, and do it until you've finished all of them. The poem, apparently, before you read it, Tristan Sarah says that the poem will be like you.
They were bigger, different. The only time spent my life feeling, a period where he wasn't rising. My penis, I'm often juggling. A few years ago, my penis, my health and happiness is too small. Is a barometer of. Did you like that?
Yeah. And do you know what Tristan Sarah would say? And here you are, a writer, infinitely original and endowed with a sensibility that is charming, though beyond the understanding of the vulgar.
Thanks. What's his name?
Tristan Sarah.
Thanks, Tristan Sarah. Very nice of you to say.
So, this is the end of part one of our Dada adventure, Tom.
Oh, right. Is it?
Yeah, so we will be doing part 2 in 2 weeks. We'll be coming up.
We should start a holiday company doing Dada adventures.
Where to?
I don't know. Where's a good place? I suppose Blackpool.
I think we just... Next time we'll be talking about the spread of Dada into other countries. And we will be talking about things such as, I'll explain to you what I mean when I say Christ is sausage to you.
That's the most profound thing I've ever heard.
And also, I'll be talking about the Super Dada, who dreamt of building a mega 750 metre high pyramid for his followers.
Super Dada?
Yeah, Super Dada.
Is that a wrestler?
No, you're going to have to wait till next time, Tom. I'm not telling you now. So that's it for this pod. So we've just got a few things. It does take us a lot of time and does cost us to run this podcast. And you can help us out by donating as little as $1 a month. And you can do this via the Patreon page. And what's the Patreon page, Tom?
It's a page where we take...
patreon.com/modern art is rubbish. So, or if you're inclined to share, if you're one of those people who like to share the podcast, you can do this via our website, which is modernartisrubbish.com. Look, we love hearing from you, and if you want to get in contact with us, you can email us at info@modernartisrubbish.com. And also, please don't forget to subscribe via your preferred app. Source, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes.
And visit us on Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook, which is facebook.com/modernartisrubbish.
And we're always posting content on there all through the week.
Yes, and I always answer the little replies to our posts. And as a special to celebrate a year of the podcast, we want to talk about your art with a dash of arty context. So do you have any friends or family that make art? It can be any medium. Just send us a pic and we may also share it on our webpage. And the email is info@modernartisrubbish.com. So, Tom, I think we want to say thank you to everyone for listening.
Yeah.
And I think it's just bye, isn't it? I think it should be a...
Talking meaningless talk. Talking meaningless words.
meaningless words, spouting meaningless words, talking meaningless talk, talking